Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Sarah of Spa and Wellness MexiCaribe. I am here with Christine Clinton of Wellness for Life, and Christine is going to host a webinar on wellness for families, a really interesting topic. Hi, Christine. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm good, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to talking about this topic because it's really needed, especially in our spa and wellness centers.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to you, and we'll reconnect at the end to go through any questions and talk through all of the interesting points.
Okay, thank you. So everyone, thank you. I'm Christine Clinton, and I am the founder of Wellness for Life. But I wanted to talk to you about wellness for families because it is gaining traction in the spa and wellness space. We see that many families are choosing vacations based on the spa menu and the offerings for the whole family. So we're seeing it show up in different parts of the world, but I know there's a lot of interest in Mexico because I've been fielding calls for this. So from enjoying massages together, which are fairly traditional, families have been doing that for some time, mother-daughter days and father-son days and so on. But this is much bigger than that. It's, really spending quality time together, learning how to cook together, um, and even harvesting food on the property. That's another big thing. Just even if it's just collecting herbs for dinner, but we're just seeing much more participation within the generations for this. And we see an expansion of spa menus to support the whole family. We can move on. Thanks, Sarah. Teenagers in particular are interested in learning ways to relax and find calm, and that's disconnecting from technology in order to reconnect with themselves and their families. I belong to an organization called World Digital Detox Day, and we're really seeing a push, not just at a government level, but at a family level, where we're trying to get our younger people to be more engaged in everyday activities and get off their phones and really try to spend more time being with their families. Simple rules like no phones at the table for dinner and things like that. But we're seeing this expand beyond home life and into wellness centers and spas where they're really encouraging a digital detox as a starting point. And I mean, certainly when I go to the spa, I notice that some of the robes don't even have pockets anymore because they don't want you to have your phone in your pocket. So we see a real effort to try to discourage the use of technology while visiting spas. And now, as I said, there's whole retreats that are based on detoxing from technology. So there's no Wi-Fi. You can't actually use your phone. And unless there's a medical emergency, they really discourage the use of any technology in your room, even in the relaxation room, outside on the property. So we're seeing that really be of interest to families um, to have as little technology as possible while they're on vacation. We can move on. Thanks, Sarah. So one of the statistics that really struck me about Mexico in particular is that, there's a lot of teenagers and young people under the age of 18, 10 million, according to Mexico Business News. The incidence of suicide in this age group has risen over 20% in the last 5 years. And unfortunately, it's not just Mexico. We're seeing this at a global scale, and we're seeing it happen in, bigger pockets in areas around the world. We're seeing it happen a lot, of course, in the United States. But 20% increase is so significant in the last 5 years. And we think about what can we do for our teenagers? Like, it's really sad to see. I'm a mother of two boys, but my boys are grown now. They're in their late 20s. But nonetheless, I have tons of nieces and nephews, and I see this firsthand. I've got clients. In fact, I saw a 16-year-old client this morning, first thing, a little stressed from graduation of high school. It's just there's always something, and I feel that we need to teach our teenagers how to really feel well in their minds and in their bodies. And I feel as a wellness sector that we have a duty of care to look after our younger folks. I mean, it's the next generation. So I really feel that as the mental health crisis continues, that we do have this duty of care to support these young people. And we really do want to help. I chair the Wellness for Children initiative through the Global Wellness Institute. And so we created a program for schools as well as for spas, because I think that wellness beginning in the formative years can really help to change that trajectory of the mental health crisis that we find ourselves in. Okay, thanks, Sarah. We can move on. So at Wellness for Life, we've created a series of programs for schools and spas to introduce wellness in the formative years and to nurture the physical and mental health of future generations. We had a trial. We did like a 5-year pilot study in Ireland, in Dublin, where I'm originally from Ireland, and my niece has the largest wellness school in Ireland with over 500 children registered. So we decided that we would do a study there and be able to see if we implemented a wellness program in the very earliest years from 2 to 5. And it was just remarkable to see how the children responded to simple things like learning about breath work, about moving their bodies. We have a little yoga program called Dino Yoga, and they can move into the positions of a dinosaur and so on. And teaching them, of course, creative expression in art, inside, outside. We have forest schools, so they're mostly 90% of the time they're outside. And of course, we also offer massage, touch therapy, and touchless therapies as well. So there's something for everyone, including neurodivergent families. And as the mother of a son with additional needs, I felt that was really important, that we understand some of the challenges associated with raising children that have additional needs. And from a spa point of view, or a wellness center, and even schools, as I said, that you understand those needs, because it's not just the child, it's the parents and it's the siblings of that child. They all have specific needs that are often not met. And my vice chair of the Wellness for Children initiative is a specialist in autism, and she's been working with school-aged children for over 22 years now in the autism sector. And we really gathered a lot of information and the real science behind what's happening, and of course what we can do to help, because I think there's a huge opportunity there within the hospitality sector to have programming. So we created some programs for hospitality that will allow a certification, and that you understand how to help and support these families. Even just a simple thing like coming from a journey on a flight to arrive at a resort, and then to see how the family could be greeted, and having a sensory room for the young person if they need to go in there to switch off. And it's more than just sticking on your headphones and hoping everything will just go away. It's really helping them to decompress. It's sight and sound, and lighting, all of those things that are important. And then when it comes to the menu, it's textures and taste. So for children that are on the spectrum, sometimes just eating dinner can be a challenge. So we wanted to help resorts really understand how they could become more accepting, and really prepared for helping families that want to take a vacation, but they have children or a child with additional needs. So we set that program up, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about that afterwards if you like. But Sarah, we can move to the next slide. So in spas around the world, we do see massage for younger guests being requested more and more. As I said, I just had a massage this morning with a 16-year-old, and this young lady's just 14, but was doing exams and had been studying a lot. And of course, we know about this forward head posture and how it really impacts the neck and shoulders in terms of leading to headaches and issues with the eyes. We see a lot of dry eye, twitching of the eyes. We're seeing all this now because of the excessive use of technology. So this was at a program that we did in Ireland. But yeah, these teenagers, these young, and girls and boys, not just the girls, but we're seeing these young teenagers really being interested in the benefits of touch. And therapeutic touch is very essential. I think that we have sadly, sexualized the word touch. So it's important to me, especially that young people understand how important it is to feel what therapeutic touch feels like, to feel good in their own bodies, to recognize that they have this ability within themselves to feel good. We've all these touch receptors in our hands, millions of touch receptors in our hands and on our skin, on and in our skin. And I think it's really important that our young people learn how to self-soothe, if you like, and learn how to feel the benefits of massage, because, it's one of the most ancient forms of well-being. We can document it over 5,000 years, but massaging the body and using those strokes of effleurage, long effleurage strokes, helps with everything from detoxing the body, because it really stimulates the lymphatic function. But also now we're just seeing, with the overuse of technology, specific techniques needed to help with that forward head posture with the forearms, the wrists, the hands, because of the overuse of texting and typing. So we can move on to the next slide. So here we go. Massage has been shown to improve nervous system dysregulation, reduce cortisol levels, and your cortisol is responsible for mood disorders such as anxiety, depression, sleeping and eating disorders. They're the four most common things. When we talk to our young people, and we're talking to people as young as 8 up to 18, and we're asking those questions like, what is it that causes you anxiety? Why do you feel sad or depressed? Why do you have trouble sleeping? And why is it you have such a hard time with digestion? And, we can see that we know that massage really helps with all of those disorders because it increases your natural endorphins, and that includes those happy hormones, your serotonin levels, and your dopamine levels. So, there was a study out recently suggesting that the use of technology, particularly before the age of 3, really affects your dopamine levels as you mature and continue through life, so that by the time you hit teenage years, you've had so much dopamine spikes, from playing games, video games, and being on technology, that by the time you hit your teenage years, your dopamine levels have depleted. And that's why we see this depression happening. And again, it's not just in Mexico and it's not just in the US. This is a global thing we're seeing. So it's how we're able to really identify and bring it back to where we think it's starting from. And we do believe it's access to technology at when the brain is really just forming. The frontal cortex is not fully formed till we're 25. So, and that's your ability to make decisions and to really reason something out. And so when we look at those suicide numbers, it's related to that, because if you've had an argument with your best friend, for example, and you think the world's going to just fall apart, or you've had a breakup, whatever it is that young person is experiencing, their ability to reason the crisis that they're in that immediate moment is not developed. So it's all or nothing right there in that moment, which is why when they make a decision to just end their lives because they can't see anything further than that immediate problem, that's part of the development of the brain. And we know that if we don't have the right inputs and exposures in the formative years, that's birth to 6 years of age, that we don't help the brain to help itself. So we really want our young people to experience natural releases of endorphins and serotonin and dopamine by, movement, as we said, getting a good night's sleep. You can never underestimate the power of a good night's sleep. So circadian health. And again, that's affected by the blue light coming in from the phone. If your brain is still getting signals that you're awake and you're reading or you're looking or you're scrolling, whatever's happening, so the brain doesn't switch off. So although you might be in bed, you're not going to get a restful night's sleep because your brain is still processing whatever data it's just taken on. So, some of these sleep hygiene habits that we want to teach our young people are that they should never have their phone beside their head, and the phone should be in another room when they go to bed, and technology shouldn't be around them, whether it's a laptop, an iPad, a phone, whatever it is, that they should be technology free for an hour before they go to bed. And there's a whole series of things that you can do to prepare your brain for bedtime. And we kind of have to teach that. We have to really teach that as a lesson, because a lot of young people just have no concept of that. They just have no idea that the actions they take have an outcome. And that's part of what we do in the program that we put together for families in spas and wellness centers. We can move on now, Sarah. Thank you. And here are those happy chemicals again. So serotonin, as I mentioned, it's a mood stabilizer, but we talk about if you want to change your mood, you have to change your food. And what we know about serotonin, even though it's a neurotransmitter, we make most of it, 90% of it, in the lining of our gut. So, our gut health, our microbiome really impacts how we are feeling. And so when we look at that whole um, area now of ultra processed foods and foods that have zero nutritional value, and we see how our young people are eating and what they're eating, we can see how that's having a direct effect on their mental health. And so serotonin is really an important one, as I said, because it acts not just as a neurotransmitter, but also for gut health. So that's extremely important. And then the dopamine, we just talked about that a minute ago too. It's our reward chemical. So anytime you're doing something that brings you immediate joy, then it's activating that pleasure zone in your brain, and so you want to do it more and more and more, which is why we see these video games for little children. They're very fast, they're moving quickly, lots of colors running right past your eyes, and so it's a quick dopamine hit every time you see something. If you're doing one of these online puzzles or whatever, and they keep going faster and faster, and your brain gets a dopamine hit every time you get to another level of it. So it's almost encouraging that addictive behavior. It's hard to put down the device. If you're getting to the next level, you want to keep going. And so these are real chemical things that happen in the brain. And so, that's why we really have to consider brain health. What does that look like? And the antidote to that is to allow the brain to be completely calm, to be quiet, to be in nature, and to have those sensations. And we think about the five senses that, most of us thankfully are born with. And we're not using them. We're not using them equally, for sure. Our sight, our gift of sight is about 67% now of the usage of our senses. So the sense of taste even has changed, because when our young people are eating, they're eating quickly. They're eating just to satiate because they're hungry and they're in the middle of something else. They just want to, shove a burger as quickly as possible, or to eat a slice of pizza really quickly, because they haven't planned for being hungry. Um, and we see that too. There's a disassociation completely with food, because they're not going shopping, they're not harvesting anything, or very rarely they're not growing anything. So they've no connection to food. Food comes in a box that maybe goes in the microwave at 5 o'clock, but they haven't chosen the food, they haven't seen it being picked or grown. And so there is a complete disassociation from food. And when we look at this hormone oxytocin, again, that's the love hormone, or it makes you feel connected or bonded. And because we had that forced isolation of the pandemic years, and it really was 2 years of not being able to be where you wanted to be or see the people you wanted to see. And that's playing out now in the mental health of our young people, the forced isolation and the fear and anxiety that went with that whole thing. Because, as you know, it happened very quickly, and all of a sudden your life changed. And our young people felt that they had absolutely no control over their lives. And, so their sense of self was redeveloped, and it was through the people they met online. And, when we see the rise in TikToks and all those types of things, that people are getting their information from those types of short, quick videos, and not really having a chance to understand what's going on. What's really happening in their with their mental health, and what's really happening in their ability to make a positive decision. And then we're going to talk about endorphins. Again, we make natural endorphins in our bodies when we exercise, when we move our body, when we do breath work. And one of the things about breath work that I particularly like is that it's free. It's how to feel healthy without having to spend any money. And teaching little ones how to do diaphragmatic breathing is one of the most joyful things I've ever done in my life, because their little faces and their little bodies responding well to all that oxygen coming into their lungs and then exhaling it. And it's really a fun thing for them to do. So I love to include that, the breath work and the mindfulness, in the spa menus that we put together for families. So we can move on now, Sarah. Thank you. And this is the technique that we were talking about. So there are some, in addition to mental health issues, there are physical issues. And once we see this forward head posture, every degree forward that you are is an extra pound of pressure on the head and neck. So I am hearing and seeing, I've got a lot of clients that ask me to see their children or their grandchildren, because they have head and neck problems. You know, they have pain in their shoulders and in their neck and in their wrists and their forearms. And we're seeing that as a direct result. And in fairness to these children, and this is actually my nephew, but, you know, Christopher, in his school, was forced to do homework and schoolwork online. So the children had no choice. They were given all this technology, this access to technology for school and homework. And so, you know, that's how it happened. And in terms of being on technology all the time. But the consequences of overuse of technology, as I said, we're seeing it happen not just mentally, but physically. So we're definitely seeing the curvature of the spine is changing in young people. We're seeing this. I mean, um, actually, I'm just trying to remember. I think in the last week, I saw maybe three young men, um, 16, 17, two at 17, one at 16, you know, just getting their driver's license, just learning to drive. And one of them could not turn their head to check when they were driving, to turn their neck to one side. They couldn't do it because they spend so much time on their phones. Now, there are also children that are involved in sports, so it's not like they're just sedentary young people. But they're just so much on their phone, and that forward head posture has really affected their ability to sleep comfortably. Some of them sleep on their tummy, so your head's turned to the side all night long, which also impacts the neck. So it's just their lifestyle side effects of overuse of technology. So we really have to teach these young people how to maintain good posture, what good posture looks like, what it feels like when you're sitting up nice and straight, and how it changes, how your neck feels, how your shoulder feels, how heavy your head feels as you're holding it upright. All of those things are good for a young person to be able to learn about. We'll move on now. Thank you. And then this is what we're seeing again, the evolution already, how quickly the body adapts, but already we're seeing the evolution of overuse of technology. And this young man has been texting. He's 19, but he's had a phone for a decade now. So this is 10 years of texting, texting, texting. You can see how the web part from his thumb to his forefinger, that has just stretched. It has stretched out completely from bringing your thumb around, to text. So, we're seeing physical changes in the body, as I said, and down the forearm, we're seeing those extensors. We're really seeing that being impacted both when the hand is pronated. We can see what's happening like there. It's almost like carpal tunnel syndrome, although technically it's not that, but we are seeing that the extensor muscles and that connection of the tendons from the elbow, even that nerve, the ulnar nerve that runs down from the elbow into the hand. Sometimes we're hearing young people talk about a burning sensation in their hands and wrist, and it's coming from that ulnar nerve because, again, the rotation of the wrist as they're texting and typing at a million miles an hour. So we're seeing, formation of the hand change, which is really shocking how quickly it's happening. Okay, we can move on. And yeah, thanks, Sarah. This is another one of those young men I saw recently. Just parents were concerned. He just wasn't sleeping well. He had an exam coming up, but also had discomfort when turned his head to the side. So, and you can see in this picture, actually, it's not just the angle at which the photograph was taken, but there is more. He's more raised on one side than the other, and that's because he says he lays in his bed and he's on his phone. So whatever side he's lying on, you can see that's what's happening. So it's really an opportunity to educate as part of the program we put together, for the teenagers, it's teaching them about the anatomy and physiology of their body and the muscles and where they are and what they do. So, origin and insertion and what's the action of this muscle, and then relating it right back to the activity that they do if they've got their phone in their hand. And if they've got their phone in their hand and they're looking down at their phone, immediately that's putting pressure on the average of 15 muscles in your neck that's required your head to be to be forward facing. So we teach them those things. And you know what? They're very quick to respond. And most of these young people and their parents, I get a lot of, thankfully, good feedback. And the parents were like, wow, that made such a difference. I've been telling him for, months and months and months, and he don't listen. But then they hear the why, the what, the why, and the how. What's going on in your body? How is that happening? How can I fix it? And we're seeing a change. We're definitely seeing an improvement because these young people don't want to be in pain. So it's a very helpful thing. Thanks, Sarah. We'll move on. Oh, that was it. Okay. Uh, so, so thank you all for listening. I hope you found it informative and helpful. I've been a therapist for 35 years, and this industry is just my passion. Anything I can do to help our young people to feel better, for parents to feel that there is some kind of a solution, and then for spa owners and directors to know that spa menus can be adapted and adjusted for the younger guest. That's what I want to see happening. So I'm welcome. You're welcome to send me any questions or comments that you have. Sarah, thank you so much.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Thank you very much. That was really informative.
Good.
Okay. We do have a question that is, how can spa and wellness professionals best support teens without making the experience feel like a treatment or something clinical?
Oh, well, it's I mean, a lot of that's the language they choose to use in the spa menu then. It can be an immersive experience. So they don't want to think it's a treatment, that's fine. They can come and learn about their body. They can come and take a movement class, if you want to call it that they could just learn the muscles they're going to move. Again, we just talked a little bit about origin and insertion. Where does the muscle begin? Where does it end? What's the action of that muscle? You need that muscle to pick up your phone. You need that muscle to put your backpack on. And it's just relating it back to the lifestyle of the young person that you're seeing. So in our training program, we have all of those scenarios, and then we train the therapist to know how to ask the right question. It all comes down to the consultation, really.
Fantastic. Next one is, what role does touch therapy or massage play in teen mental health? And are there any precautions or limits to keep in mind?
Well, there's always precautions because obviously you need the parents' permission, for example. There was talk about, can the child be on their own in the room? And if it's massage therapy specifically, because you can have massage and be fully clothed, right? So you can do some form of a modified massage where maybe you're doing reflexology, or you're doing craniosacral work, or you're just doing breath work and relaxation, visualization. You can do sound healing, fibroacoustics. Like there's so many different things. If we have neurodivergent children that don't want to be touched, and we had a group of young people. We had a nonverbal 3.5-year-old boy all the way up to 15 and 16-year-olds that were on the spectrum. And what they found was they were cautious to receive touch, but after we showed them they were doing and how to feel it, and they could apply product themselves on their hands, they started to really want to have massage more, because we have this misnomer that people who are autistic don't want to be touched, and that's not true at all. It's the type of touch. It's much more of a compression and a squeeze than effleurage strokes. So it's just understanding those things. But in terms of precautions, yes, of course, we have to be careful and follow the rules of whatever country you're in. In this case, it's Mexico. But the mental health component is how massage helps to relax the body. So it reduces your cortisol levels, so it reduces stress levels and increases those hormones we talked about, the happy hormones, serotonin is released, oxytocin is released. But I think from the isolation part, for some of the young people that really never felt reconnected with their friends after isolation of COVID and lockdown and all everything that went with that, it helps them to feel good about themselves again. So for me, touch is essential.
Wonderful. And how can spas or wellness centers create teen-specific services that are appealing? Any tips that you can provide?
That are appealing. Yeah, ask them. It's a, you know, honestly, we put it on the thing. Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to move your body better? Do you want to feel better in your own skin? Do you have acneic skin? Do you have, trouble with your digestion? We just ask them the questions they have, the issues they might be presenting with, and then
Mhm.
we tell them we have solutions for them. So it's a very focused, I rarely do the same treatment twice, honestly. Because, someone will come in and say, well, I don't sleep good. I maybe sleep because, a lot of these kids, because they like technology, will tell you that they've been tracking their sleep. They know they're only getting 5 hours of sleep and maybe only an hour of REM sleep. So they're not even getting, when we explain to them about the importance of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, that's when your DNA is repairing itself. So if we look at this through the lens of longevity, if you're not getting good sleep when you're 16 or 17, it's really not a good trajectory to be on for someone to be
Yes.
healthy in their 30s and 40s. So, and if you just take the time to explain that, I think it really does have an impact because they're well educated in the most part. And of course, they've exposure to, they can Google anything and get an answer themselves. But
Mhm.
if we just relate it back to their specific circumstance, I think they're much more open to listening.
Fantastic. And can you tell us a little bit more about your course that you offer? And if any spas or resorts are interested in having you come out to train, what does that look like?
Yeah.
How many people can go on the course? How many days does it take?
It's a 2-day training, and yes, we have modifications to the techniques of how to adjust your massage techniques. We obviously have a look. It's a very individualized, bespoke offering. So, if the spa already has touchless therapies, we help to create a circuit for young people. Again, if some of our teenagers are very active, they're playing sports at school, they're playing soccer, they play lacrosse, so they do both, and they may have injuries, like they may actually have physical injuries where their calf muscles are doing whatever, their feet are behaving a certain way, their Achilles tendon is too tight, whatever it is. So we try to adjust and adapt to that particular type of child. And if we've sedentary youngsters that are sitting for an average of 8 hours a day, and then when they are at home, they're slumped over because they're not sitting up properly. And so that leads to some of the actual pain we see. We try to address and adjust their lifestyle choices through education. But it's a 2-day certification program, and we come in and we evaluate and assess the spa, have a look at what the spa already offers, put together a circuit for them. We train the therapists how to make the adaptations in the massage for the younger guest. And then we also have a little bit, and I can send some information if anybody wants to email me afterwards. But we do teach some basic massage techniques because we're also seeing multi-generational families. We're looking at the parents and the grandparents coming for a holiday together. And so
Mhm.
the grandparents want to know what they can do with their grandchildren. So we have a basic massage technique that we show the grandparents how to massage their little ones. And that's a separate workshop that lives within inside the training. So if parents want to know how to massage their little ones or grandparents want to be more involved, then we also have that as part of the training.
Perfect. Excellent. So we'll add your contact details with the webinar as it's posted. So anyone interested in more information can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Christine. Really interesting information.
Good, you're so welcome. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to talk about this, Sarah. I think we know each other a long time, and I feel very passionate about helping our young people. So thank you for having me today, and thank you, Fabi, for putting all of this technology together. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and stay well.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ciao.
Bye.